Buyers need to remind themselves that they really can't make a big mistake in LA, whether they buy at the price the seller's asking for or $25,000 more or whatever. It's like you're going to win in the long run. The data shows it. That is the only science I back when it comes to real estate. Everything else is just opinions.
Under all is the land, the real estate. Courtney and friends about to show you how to generate wealth. Get educated, do for yourself. Add a couple notches to your belt. Under all is the land. Under all is the land. The real under all is the land. Under all is the land. The real estate. Coming to you live from ACME Real Estate in Los Angeles, California.
Welcome to a new season of Under All is the Land, Season 4, Episode 1. I'm your host, Courtney Poulos, here with my rock star co-stars, Silke Fernald.
Hello.
And Dominique Madden.
Hi.
So, y'all, the market has changed. I know we've been kind of talking about it as time has gone on, but now I'm starting to see evidence of it in patterns, repeated behavior by buyers, by sellers, and by agents. So I thought today our topic could be who wins? How do you win in this market if you're a buyer, if you're a seller, or if you're an agent? Yeah?
Yeah.
You guys down?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with buyers. I have a lot of clients who are writing losing offers. You?
Go. Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Knowingly writing losing offers.
Yeah. Because we're just going to throw some stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
So there's still an idea that there's a deal to be had.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think that people are still subscribing to, the talk that applied to, last year or even the beginning of this year to an extent, but they're not really, until they're being beat out several times, seeing that the market has shifted and that more people are back out. So it's they want to challenge that.
Right, so here's what I mean when I say the market has shifted. So before it was just a straight seller's market, we knew it, interest rates were lower, buyers were in multiples on every house, right? Then the interest rates tick up, buyers are seeing the news headlines saying the market's softening, some buyers jump out, smart buyers stay in, but they see maybe there were some deals to be had. And I will admit that around the holidays, there are always some deals to be had. I buy almost all of my houses around between Thanksgiving and December because that's when sellers who have had their properties on for a very long time are maybe more flexible and buyers are distracted and whatever. Anyway, my point is you can't misconstrue that softening with necessarily a softening overall of the market that's going to last. It is a seasonal softening at best, as we can see by what's picked up in the spring. So yes, that goes from November, December to January, and then February comes along, and even when interest rates are at 6%, people are figuring out ways to get relationship discounts with different lenders than we would have recommended before. Probably First Republic's rates have gone up, for example, so we're not getting those Eagle program rates, but Bank of the West and other banks are now offering these relationship discounts that allow people to move money and get some off their interest rates. So they're figuring out a way to still buy. And inventory is still surprisingly low in most places that people in LA want to buy. So you're still seeing multiple offers. And I just think that the buyers who are not winning are the ones who are still under the impression that they have some power in the pricing. Because I just think that's so realistic offers are just, my buyers are writing consciously knowing they're going to lose. I mean, that's not winning.
Yeah, it's it's almost if you're not going to come to the table and you know that the traffic's going to be there, why? I mean, to an extent. And I feel if someone's going to come to the table, but maybe they're not prepared to take it all the way, you never know what's going to fall out. And some people put these super high offers in, just to try to bid it down, and then
well,
can't live up
let's
to it.
talk
So
about
does
that
happen.
Because that's happening more now than before too. So in the previous market, when buyers were just so thrilled to even get the daggone thing into escrow, I feel they were sticking in because there was a backup right behind them maybe even higher than the accepted offer, putting pressure on the accepted offer, people were hungry. So now it seems like when the buyers win, even in a multiple offer scenario, they still feel like they're overpaying potentially, and they're not as willing to stick in, and they still see like maybe there's a better deal to be had around the corner. So they're aggressively negotiating requests for repairs and or canceling on whimsy, and it just doesn't seem like they're as committed as they were before in the previous market. Like, do you see that too?
Yeah, but I also think the last 3-4 months, when we had a little bit of a low and some sellers went into panic mode and maybe gave more concessions than they would have in a hot market, and those buyers close escrow and they tell their friends on what they were able to do, and word is getting out that, oh, maybe there's deals to be had. So there's a lot of that where people just, and then also with the bad guidance of their agents,
right,
who like to sometimes negotiate against themselves without realizing what they're doing.
Right.
That's a perfect storm. So they're still trying. There's not much commitment. They're still trying to get all the things, or getting more that they should have or would have gotten in a hotter market. So it's. But I think that's about to, like, that's switching, like that's changing.
Listen, I think the
People
reality
you're not getting as much. Sellers don't need to give you everything you're asking for. They don't have to sell at a low price.
Right.
We have sellers that, like, I wait for my price and I'll wait and they will get it eventually.
Yes.
You just got to stick to it.
Right.
So I think that's just residuals from what happened about 3 months ago, when people panic sold the houses for a hot second because everything seemed to be doomsday.
Right.
And
these comps
changed.
still live in our comp set.
Right.
So
and that's
sometimes,
the next
like,
thing.
we'll send the comps and the buyers will be like, well, why did this good-looking house sell for so cheap? And it was sold in like December 28th.
Exactly.
And you're like trying to explain.
So you have to do micro comping now.
Yeah, really micro comping.
Like the last 3 months, not good. Yes. It's like, go back to exactly what closed, like starting March 1st. Don't look at February.
No, but it's funny because, I've actually seen that appraisers need to be educated. The agents who don't operate like daily in the market need to be educated. Like, there's so many people who, if they're not actively working and seeing what's happening like this week, they're still living in last month or 2 months ago.
That's a great point. And I definitely want to touch on that when we talk about which agents are winning and which are losing right now, because that totally ties into that. But as far as buyer mindset is concerned, I was going to say, buyers need to, in order to truly take advantage of any market, they need to be realistic, but also remember that you can't make a mistake in the long term. Not in LA. The property values always go up. Even when people were saying like, not saying, when I had, like, during the downturn, obviously there were a lot of people short selling that didn't even need to. They just jumped on the bandwagon because that's what the media was talking about, and everybody wanted to be a victim of being underwater, not even realizing what that really means. Like, they could have paid their mortgage, but then they felt like they had too high an interest rate, or they felt like they shouldn't because there were all these ways to get out of it.
And how did that work out for them?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if they would have held on, they would have made money, double the money.
Triple
the money in some areas.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Buyers need to remind themselves that they really can't make a big mistake in LA, whether they buy at the price the seller's asking for or $25,000 more or whatever. It's like, you're going to win in the long run. The data shows it. That is the only science I back when it comes to real estate. Everything else is just opinions. Like, different agents have opinions. We get emails from agents who love to have their opinions. And sometimes the advice that they give is the exact opposite of advice that I would give. Like, really, agents have wildly varying opinions on things. But the one thing that I think we can all agree on is that property appreciates over time. And in Los Angeles, it is especially true, So I think buyers need to brave up a little bit and stop. Like, the buyers who win are the ones who are getting that still. They're still seeing the value in the real estate. They're still understanding the difference. Like, look at my listing on Brenthurst, right? that property is high-end finishes, you know, new like 98% new construction, a beautiful, calm, lovely street, beautiful landscaping, you know, and I've had buyers come at me with all kinds of reasons why they thought the price was too high, when literally just steps from there you're paying 2.3, literally 50 meters, you know, like 2.3 million for a house that's not nearly as beautiful, but is just a little bit more up a hill,
yeah.
Which I understand. Like, properties on a hill are going to have more value, but you know, things like, well, it's next to a daycare. You know, well, it's next to a daycare that is a tiny little daycare that has like no one ever coming or going and no kids running around at all. And if you Google it, you can see that it has, you know, it's like 12 kids, you know, and if you have a kid, you're not offended by kids running around. You understand that people need daycares, and when you have a kid, you realize you need a daycare, and having a daycare next door might be awesome, actually. You know, like, it's actually not a bad thing. But even if you ask the neighbors, like, hey, how's the street? Nobody mentions anything disruptive on the street at all.
But these are the questions that they're asking in this market. No one would have asked this question last year, same time. You would have had 15 offers after the first weekend.
Right.
So that's the thing.
That's
true.
true.
So it's not a problem.
I don't hate buyers having some power. I just want to say that. I'm down with buyers asking the questions. Mm-hmm. But don't use every excuse in the book to cut down the value of a property. In fact, it doesn't work to your benefit either, because it's going to show up as you are bringing the values down that, you know, of the thing that you bought. So if you don't want to ride the market down in the short term, then you want to appreciate the value. Let the seller pay your interest rate down, or, you know, accept some credits or something like that, but protect your value. As a buyer, it benefits you. This idea of getting a deal is like riding the market psychologically down. And since the market doesn't agree with you on this, it's going to be like banging your head up against a wall, just writing offer after offer that is not going to get accepted, and being disappointed and shocked every time that there are 15 other people willing to spend more money than you on this house, where the comps clearly say the value is higher than what you estimated at. Mm-hmm. So no matter what your market excuses are, your dad told you not to because of SVB, or, you know, there's a daycare next door, or you don't understand the neighborhood, or whatever it is, if you are like cutting the value down just to try and convince yourself that it's worth less than it actually is, you're the one who loses. That is not how to win.
That's true.
As a buyer in this market.
For sure. And, you know, thinking that you're going to wait for the values to fall or something big to happen is silly, because the reality is that if something's impacting the country, guess who it's also impacting? You. You know, if the interest rates rise, guess who's also impacted? You. So It's like the prices adjust, so does your, you know, ability to pay a certain price, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know, it's
right. It's like
people need to be realistic, and they need to know it's about getting in. Because when you're in, you have the asset that you can improve, that you can, you know, use the equity on, that you can figure out how to
leverage it.
Yeah, how to leverage it. You know, it's all about getting in. That's where they need to, like,
it is. And while these same buyers are telling me, oh, well, because of the daycare, or because of the SVB collapse, or because of this thing or that thing, you're renting $4,000 a month. You're throwing away on nothing. And yet you want to be the smart guy who tells me why it's worth less than when what the seller spent to build it, for example. You know, and I'm like, you're the one who's losing right now. You do realize that, right?
Yeah, but you know, people, especially in LA, they like to focus on their rent-controlled rent. You know, they're like, you know, we have this super low rent, we're in this great location, you know, so even though we're throwing it away, we'll double, you know, our cost of living will double, you know? And it's like, well, you know, you're not getting any benefit out of it, except for something over your head.
You got $200,000 when you change from one rental to another.
Right.
Not
think
recently.
About that.
I mean, no matter how cheap it is, it's still a net loss.
Right.
That's the bottom
line. There's no
line.
Tax benefits, you know? I mean, other than maybe writing off a home office, you know? It's like, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that buyers that win are writing realistic offers that are acknowledging the reality of the market, that are not asking their agents who are unfamiliar with certain neighborhoods to advise them on certain neighborhoods. That's another thing that smart buyers do. If you know your agent doesn't know a particular area, one thing you could do is ask the agent that's hosting the open houses about the area. Now, we're restricted from saying demographic things, but we can tell you about new restaurants or grocery stores or, the things that we can talk about, but I would just say, like, do your own due diligence, drive down the street, talk to the neighbors.
Exactly.
Whatever. But if somebody's been living there for 40 years and still has a smile on his face, probably it's an all right place to live, like could have moved a million times by now and didn't,
Go to the open house, just see who's coming in, hang out, talk to the people.
Yeah.
You'll learn so much.
Yes. And I don't know if it's veiled racism, or if it's, I don't even know if it's just total ignorance of geography. It's actually what I think it is.
Yeah, I think people just don't know.
I think they just really don't know the city and get confused by the idea that there have been places that existed before they even knew about them that have established values. Wait, what?
Wait,
I didn't get the memo on, View Park having like multi-million-dollar houses. So it must not be real. It's like, no, it's been having multi-million-dollar houses for a few years now, like decades.
Yeah. I think there are two sides of that spectrum. I think there are the people who are like, oh my God, there's this community off of Crenshaw, but there's also the people who are like, oh, I don't want to be the person pushing people out.
Right.
And I actually just had someone say that to me about Jefferson Park. I'm like, I'm like, Jefferson Park is very diverse,
right?
But LA in general, I feel like
diverse.
is generally diverse. Like, I mean, I have clients of all races everywhere, literally everywhere. It's not like anyone's just specifically in a neighborhood,
right?
Though historically people have been pushed into certain neighborhoods. We're not in that space anymore. So it's always interesting when I hear that too, because I'm like, you need to get rid of that thought, because diversity, creates community, so it's like, why would you be afraid of being as someone who can bring, another perspective or, whatever you've got, to another space. But that's also something that I see people hold themselves back and not consider neighborhoods that they maybe would thrive in and would love and would find awesome deals in, or things that they perceive as deals,
Well, let's talk about who wins in that situation, because it's interesting. There's a big banner in Lemert that's like, stop gentrification. And, we've had several guests on who talk about community certain communities, certain people. It's not even everybody, but it's like really of concern to certain people. So if that is the narrative, and then it keeps willing home buyers from not exploring those areas out of respect or fear of being, seen as an intruder, not accepted, who loses and who wins? Because to me, who loses when you accept some diversity in the workplace, for example, but not in your own neighborhood, is your values are going to remain low.
Right.
So if that's the intention, then your grandma, who is going to live off the sale of this house to buy her retirement home and give the kids some money to go to college or something, I'm just making that up.
Or not even the sale, the equity. A refinance to finance something else, or a HELOC.
There you go. All of that is going to be affected by that lower price. And that's not good for the people who own property. So it's like, unless you're trying to artificially make the values lower under the guise of that will make it more accessible, but nobody's actually taking advantage of the lower prices, then the only people that lose are the people that currently live there and can't recognize the full value of their equity and investment. So to me, that is not a winning proposition. I think we have to accept change and embrace the beautifully diverse city that we live in. And, even though we can't all be part of certain, communities, like, I'm not Cuban, so I can't really be part of the Cuban community, or whatever. It doesn't mean we can't learn things or enjoy things that are offered. This is what I love about traveling. I'm like, in Greece, I married a Greek at one time, but I'm not Greek. And so a lot of the cultural things, even the time they eat dinner and the food and the stuff is all very different to me. And I enjoy learning, and people are proud to share and happy to share. So I feel like there's an opportunity there
Totally.
to share.
And I think LA has a I think LA culture is diversity. You know, like people who are real Angelinos, like, you know, like it doesn't matter what race you are. It's like, you know that the street vendors have fresh fruit.
Right.
And you like that shit.
Right.
You know, like
I love that shit.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like in
Right.
Pennsylvania, I never saw a street vendor.
No.
You know?
No.
Like, you know, it's like,
My God, totally.
You
It's
know?
true.
Yeah.
There are some particular LA things
Yeah.
where you're like, that's hot. Like, yeah. I
but
can
it
think
comes
of so
out of a
many.
melting pot of people,
Right.
you know?
And
Like,
out of cultures willing
Yeah.
to share.
yeah.
And I think there's a generosity in there that also results in like reward too. Like it's a two-way street. So people can be proud, share what they have with open arms, say, look, come in and try our food, or like understand our point of view, or whatever. It starts a dialogue. And I think that's really critical. I mean, we are modern people. We all know that we're not all one thing or the other by now. We have to get beyond everything being in a racial context, I think. That's probably not something everybody agrees with. I don't know. But in terms of housing, that's legally what is supposed to happen.
Right.
Yep.
But
So,
rising property values in certain areas, you know, I think what the guests we had in the past regarding, especially Lombard Park, like the thought was like, well, then rents will go up and some people can't afford it anymore. The cool fancy restaurants come in where folks that lived there for 30 years can't really afford to eat it. So there's that fear, right?
Right,
so
but
it's a
then,
little
like,
bit of a,
yeah, but
I
like-
get it too, but obviously, yes, it's amazing to get property values up for everybody because everybody benefits, but the cost of living in those places changes.
right.
And that is a little bit,
And then we
it's
have
a little
like
bit of a
Akil
two-edged-
who like got figured out a way to like buy Degnan, you know, and keep that ownership in. There's a way to prevent that from happening.
But I'll also say, it's like, why shouldn't people have options for, you know, the dollar tacos at one place and the $20, you know,
Tacos on the
fancy,
other.
well presented, you know, this is where I'm going to take my date tonight space. You know what I mean? Like, I think people should have options, and I think it's good to have, you know, the mom and pop spaces that have been there since, you know, the 70s or whatever, and then the new fresh space that's just been like renovated and cute and whatever and gives you a vibe. It's nice to have options.
no,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I'm just,
But, you know, but people
I
are afraid of
understand
change.
where-
That's,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah,
people
but
are
yeah.
afraid of change. They don't like to see the spaces that have been there and that are like, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, marks for their childhood
Right.
change,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, I remember when John and Vinny's went in, and, you know, even still, sometimes I see posts about the John and Vinny's and, you know, like what was there before, which was Yee's Chinese. And, you know, it's like a debate between people who are local who are like, they served dogs for sure. Like, it was not real food, you know? Like, no one liked Yee's Chinese, and if you did, you're disgusting, you know?
right,
But
right.
then, you know, there are other people who are like, what are you talking about? It was the best Chinese food spot. Like, it should have stayed. And da, da, da.
Oh
So
my
there's
God.
always
But
going
John
to be
and Vinny's,
a split.
I mean, to be fair, their food is amazing, but their customer
Oh, I
service
have beef.
and their like situation where you have to tip like twice, like
The prices
it's too
are
expensive.
insane.
I do love their wait staff. Like, I love their wait staff.
yeah.
I do. I really like their wait staff, but not to pay an extra 38% on top of the already high prices.
And the like city tax in LA is already
Yeah.
so high. It's
Yeah.
hardly affordable for anybody.
No.
Yeah, no,
That
it's,
is
it's
like John
definitely
and
a
Vinny's
treat.
supposed to be like
Your bill
nice
doubles.
dining, but
This is
damn,
like, yeah,
this
this
is
is like
date night dining.
This is
Yeah.
date
lunch.
night dining, like a la Mozza or Osteria or Angelini, whatever. Like like
It's
nice.
fancy.
Yeah.
When it really is more like the pizza place around the corner, in my opinion. But
Right,
when
exactly.
you pay,
I
you're
mean,
like,
well,
that's not.
It's
Yeah.
a little higher level
Yes.
than the pizza place around the corner, but it's not like.
I mean,
It's
They
not,
do
to
make
me, it's
fresh
not
in-house
five-star.
pasta. I will say that is really
I just feel like when I see that, I'm like,
homemade.
that is probably ridiculously too high,
I agree with
even for me.
that. Yeah. For
For
anyone, it's
anyone,
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
I agree with that. Yeah,
I mean, there are
people need
points
to be,
to be made
yeah. I
about-
think people need to be conscious about, like, you know, yeah, just being like obnoxiously
High.
expensive. That's
Expensive,
ridiculous.
Right. And then, you know, I mean, this is LA. So we also love in LA, there is a culture of paying for boutique shit. Like, I paid $4.50 for a cup of soft serve ice cream because I saw a food truck that's never usually there on Ventura yesterday. And I'm like, ooh, soft serve ice cream. Like, if he could have said $10, I would have bought it. you know, but it's like a one-off thing, you know.
You're rich.
I just wanted it.
Well, of course, but they.
But I'm just saying, like, there are boutique
You had a
experiences
craving.
in LA. Like, I bought a pie from a place that all they do is make pies. So I'm willing to pay a premium for a high quality made pie.
It's true, because if someone's focusing on just those pies are going to be awesome.
So good.
Yeah.
I know. Like, there's a
It's
pudding
true.
place that just makes pudding. Like, okay, so my
It's true.
point is, there is a culture in LA. Paris is the same way too. It has these little boutiques. Like, you get your bread from the bread place, the cheese from the cheese place, and you'll pay you know. I love that, because I'm like, you're a specialist.
Yeah, that's Germany too.
Yeah.
The
So
bakery,
I'm not saying
the
that without
butcher.
exception you can't charge a little more if you're really great at what you do. But, you know, I think there are some things that are just kind of like over the top.
Yeah.
And that's one of them to me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's because it's like, in addition to the prices that are already like high, you know, now you're also adding an additional service charge, and then also expecting like a tip, a normal tip,
Right.
You know, so it's like
It
all
adds
together,
a whole third
yeah,
to your bill.
it does. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, but
Anyway.
anyway, just to get back to the winning buyers, any final thoughts on what it is that makes a buyer win in this market? I said being realistic about the market, like not assuming that there's a deal around the corner just because you heard some news a couple months ago. You know, finding ways to make it work too, clever. Like, don't just rely on coming up with reasons like the daycare next door or this thing or the other to try and dumb down the value of a property that you really actually love and kind of probably know that it's worth what the listing is. And I would say doing your own due diligence, not just relying on your agent who may not understand everything about every neighborhood. LA is huge, and not every agent sells in every neighborhood a lot, which doesn't mean they can't be a great agent for you on the deal. But it may mean that the onus is on you, buyer, to do a little more investigation or exploration on your own before, you know, instead of asking the agent to do that on your behalf. Because really, we're not supposed to be advising on that kind of stuff. But we'll get to some of that in the agent thing. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, one of the key factors for someone to win right now is being open, you know, being open to different possibilities, different areas, you know, like work potentially, you know, I mean, not necessarily a full reno, but it's like, you know, there's no perfect house and inventory is low. There are a ton of buyers out right now. So it's like, you've got to, you know, get creative sometimes. And, you know, you're not going to have something that's like 100% what you want, you know, nor is the seller going to make it 100% what you want, you know, via credits or repairs or whatever, you know, because it's not that market anymore.
Right.
Where people are just going to give, you know. So I think people have to be realistic, like you were saying, and be open, you know, and accept that there will be options that will be good for you that you can build on and then use to get to the next space, you know. And the more open you are and what you'll consider, you know, the more luck you'll have in actually like getting something.
Oh,
you know?
and also, if you're in escrow, or I should say before you write the offer, knowing that your agent, if it's an ACME agent, is going to really fight for you to get the deal, really figure out if you want it, if you get it, you know?
Yeah, true that. True that.
Because if you're still hunting while you're in escrow, that's not good. Not only is it's bad for you because you could be throwing away one bona fide opportunity to go for an opportunity that you might not get.
When you find the one, you stop looking.
Yeah, stop looking. Thank you. When you find the one, you stop looking. Say it again.
When you find the one, you stop looking.
That's just like butter to my ears.
There you go.
Put it on a
And
sign.
agents turn all the searches off.
Yeah, no
Disconnected. No more daily emails.
Oh my God. Okay, so we've talked buyers. Now let's talk sellers. What sellers are winning in this market? I have my
The
thoughts.
realistic sellers.
The realistic sellers. Again with the realism.
I agree with that. I think people who are not, you know, again, just stuck in a different time, you know, who are really looking at where we're at right now, you know, which is recovered from like the winter time, obviously, which is always a cycle. and the beginning of this year, which was recovering from that, and last year, and the rate jumping and all the things. And now we're in a space where it's like spring is sprung and people are out, and, you know, buyers have digested that the interest rates really aren't that bad and that they can buy and that they need to buy. And, you know, but it's also not like desperate, you know, that people aren't desperate. So it's not like mid 2020 or like, you know, 2021 where it's like people were like, I have 2% rates and I just need to like buy anything. I just need to get anything. It's not that, you know? So like people who were, you know, like for example, flippers who, you know, maybe bought their fixer a couple years ago with a certain projection, you know, and now maybe it's not that crazy.
Not that anymore.
Yeah. They need to like bring it down.
Okay, so I think that sellers who are like renovation resale artists who have been really winning a lot over the past 8 to 10 years need to always predict that there could be a market shift and budget a contingency for changes in the market into their budget, like anyway, like maybe 10%. It can take one incident or one like thing to change desirability about a particular location or whatever.
Totally.
And a lot of times flippers or renovation artists are selling in areas that are very sensitive to things that could, you know, market changes, interest rates, programs falling out at like trusted lenders, like the Eagle program at First Republic. So anything can happen. So I think a prepared seller who has a long-term way of estimating his success is going to succeed, because you can say, look, I won on 9 out of 10 of these last years, so I'm going to take it on the chin in this year, and then my next project I'm going to budget better because I understand the volatility of the market. Like I knew this time was going to come. So rookie flippers haven't been doing that. You know, they are only accustomed to this winning market and don't know how to adjust, overspend on everything. We're paying crazy amounts on hard money and putting agents in a position where, you know, no matter what we do, it's not going to get them the price, because it's not about us at the end of the day. You know, it's about the quality of the product. We know we're great at what it is that we do, and we can do our part of the job to our best ability. It's not about the agent. It's like at the end of the day, sometimes just about perception of value from a changing market. Yeah.
No.
So like taking the long-term approach to realizing whether or not you need to reduce or whatever falls in line with the realism.
Building 10% contingency. And it's funny that I have to smile because, you know, all our flippers they can barely stick to their budget as is. Like building such a contingency in, it's almost like they're going to look at us and be like, like they're, you know, it's because there's most of our flippers aren't the cutthroat numbers guys. They're the emotional, I need to make it extra pretty and beautiful, and I'll just spend 10 grand on this stove because it's great for the house and it'll look so good on the marketing material, you know. Like that. It's like it's just funny. I have to smile when you say the, you know, building in the 10%. It's like they barely can stick to the actual budget and make a buck on the end. Like sometimes people don't understand how little they walk away with. For what they're actually putting in and the stress that they have to, you know, endure in those 2 years of owning the house.
Yeah.
And dealing with the workers every day and holding costs and whatever. We've been over this so many times.
All the things.
And then
that's true. It's like you're not just paying for the house. You're paying for all the process. Work that's gone. The process. You're paying for the process. All the things that have gone into making that house a reality.
But yes, so of course, the more seasoned, the more maybe numbers guys, like, okay, just add that contingency in, you'll be fine, you'll make money no matter what market you're in. But
let's talk the flip side though. Let's talk the flip side of that, which is the bad flippers who were like making money hand over foot in the more, you know, in the busier market when people more desperate and we're taking properties.
Fist? Hand over foot?
Hand over foot? Hand over fist? I don't know.
One of those.
Hand over something.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
No, but but I mean, they were raking it in whenever people just wanted houses because the interest rates were so low and the competition was stiff. And now, like, those shitty flips aren't selling, you know?
Right.
So they also, you know, like if we want to look at who's successful and who's not in this market, the people who are like doing the least are not successful. Like
Right.
people are not buying that,
Right.
you know?
That's a good point. It's like the appetite, it has gone down
Yeah.
for the properties that just barely make the cut in terms
Yes.
of aesthetics.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I think
So there's a sweet spot somewhere.
there
Yeah,
is a
the sweet spot.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
those are the people who win. The people who
Yes,
figure out
who
the
know
sweet
how
spot.
to buy it for a proper price and
Yeah.
not spend crazy on finishes, but have a
right.
good enough product to still get that number.
Right.
It's a science.
Like maybe not a, like a Bertazzoni stove, but also maybe not a KitchenAid, you know?
Right.
Maybe a Wolf. Maybe a Fisher
Well,
Paykel.
that's-
Well, it depends on what you're trying to get out of
Yeah.
it too. I mean, I think that like I've seen lately, which we especially saw in Southridge, people being a bit more conservative in the way that they buy.
Right.
So the question is, can they hold on to that conservatism in their budgeting? You know,
Yeah.
and really pick and choose which repairs to make systems wise, and how to do, like, you can splurge on certain things and be more conservative on other things and still completely make a beautiful product.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, there's a delicate dance there that I think, like, if you're experienced, if you've been around in the business through a few cycles, then you kind of know what adjustments you need to make and where, and
Well,
you're
that's where we
willing to
come
take
in.
take a little, like I said, like a little hit on the chin on one, but know going into the next one how to change that. But there are definitely people out there who just are doing the same things that they were doing in the previous market and expecting it to win. I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. If I called a listing agent and their property is advertised for some amount and they have no other offers on the table, and then tell me that they're going to counter me at a certain number that the seller will accept, when we know we're not even like in competition and it's several $100,000s off, my buyers will be turned off no matter what I say. No matter if I say, no, listen, I know it's a crazy approach, they're underpricing it crazy, but the end value really is what they're saying. Like, look, you can look at the comps and see that's what they're saying. This is just they're like, if there's no other offer on the table, then I'm not going to overpay. Like, buyers are not having it. So sellers, agents, and sellers need to change that thing that maybe worked in the past. It just does not work right now. And I hate to say it because it's never my choice to do it, but even I have been instructed by my seller to take that approach in the past 6 months, and watched that approach fall flat on its face my very own self.
Yeah.
I hate to say it because I don't want to be that agent. I'm not that agent on instinct, but at the end of the day, we work for our clients, so if our seller says, look, this is what I want you to do and it's not illegal, I have to do it,
Yeah. But the reality is too that it's like, but a seller, unless they really have to sell, many of them don't have to sell. They can figure out something else to do with it,
Right.
which is what a lot of flippers have done over like when the market was a little funky.
Right.
A lot of them, instead of selling their properties, started Airbnb-ing their properties,
Peer
renting
space.
them out, peer spacing, like figuring out other ways to make money until they feel like they'll get what they want.
Right.
So yeah,
That's a good point.
People are desperate. I actually just had someone who wrote an offer on a property that has a notice of default on it, and is something that it's not renovated. It needs some work, and the owner is selling, and she decided she didn't want to sell. So now she's trying to figure out the financing. I think, I don't know the full backstory because obviously they can't totally share it, but that's what they have to be. Right. But, but she had 17 offers, I think. And she just decided not to sell because she doesn't want to sell. She loves her house.
Wow.
It's like,
wow.
people, that's the thing I think that, just to kind of touch on, I guess this goes back to buyers. It's like, you need to be realistic because people are not
Desperate to
they're
sell.
not desperate to sell, just like you're not desperate to buy.
Right.
Necessarily.
Right. I mean, this is a good point, but this is why, if we want to get into it now, why good agenting matters in a changing market. So even the agents have to adjust now. There are certain agent styles that are working better than other agent styles that might have worked okay in the past, or at least been tolerable. So, to me, agents that win right now are more communicative. Like, they actually hop on phone calls, they write better cover letters, They try harder for their clients. They text me to make sure the offer was received. Like, you can see they're trying harder, you know, or like they even call me to like actually have a conversation. Like, hey, I don't know the neighborhood that well. Can you tell me about it? You know, what would you say are the best comps? I don't love that, doing the work for the buyer's agent, but I understand that if you're trying to sell my house, like, I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
If you don't know it, at least you admit you don't know it,
Yeah.
and you're
Yes.
not doing your client a disservice by
Yes.
pretending to know it and
Yeah.
dumbing the price down for
Yeah.
them and then losing the deal.
Right.
So I got to appreciate honesty, transparency. I do appreciate an agent that picks up the phone. I appreciate agents that, like, if the buyers need an extension or there's something shifting, you know, financially for them or something like that, that they call me and like kind of like give me a heads up and don't catch me off guard. Like, there's more agenting in the agenting right now to keep the deal together.
It's the professional agenting
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
happening more.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that too. It's okay to say I don't know something. And we as listing agents have to work harder, but we're selling our clients' properties, so we are working harder to
Right.
educate every buyer's agent that doesn't know what they're looking at or
Right.
where they are.
Or where they are.
you
Yeah.
know? So that's
Totally.
it's an extra step now.
Yeah, knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know. So we're not blindly writing offers, but also paying attention to the offers that you're writing. Like I get offers where it's clear that the buyers, I don't know what was happening in the last market, if they were just letting the seller's agents on the counter like clean up their original offer or what, but you know, I'm just getting forwarded DocuSigns, you know, with no QC, default contingencies. It's like, you know, the good agents are calling me and saying, hey, what's the story? What's going to get the deal done? What are the seller's expectations? Do you have any offers on the table? Are you writing any offers yourself? You know, where do you think it's going to land? Even though I can't always answer all of that all of the time, sometimes I'm authorized by my seller to tell them where, you know, like right now,
what
for
gets it
example,
done.
I have a duplex. It's being prepped for market. It's being staged next week. My client literally told me, if you have somebody who wants to buy it for 1,425, I'll sell it before we hit the market. So I'm like, okay, I'll let people know, you know? And so I'm being instructed to share that information. So I feel like, you know, I communicate that with the agents that I have relationships with. So, you know, I think communication is really key to winning as an agent in this market. Attitude also really matters.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I had a thought and it went.
Well, by attitude matters, I mean, before it was like sometimes I couldn't get the listing agent on the phone. Before, sometimes I felt like, I don't know, I felt like the listing agent when I was on the buy side was like, could take me for granted. You know, like they didn't feel like they had to talk to me at all. And I'm, you know, I don't like that. You know, I'm feeling like, look, even if you don't want to tell me anything, at least we can suss each other out. You know, it's like whatever the agent version is of smelling each other's butts, you know, like dogs do. Like,
Well,
it's like, you
it's
want to hear
different
me,
now,
like
you know?
you can imagine how we're going to work together. You know, like I can share with you like my professionalism, blah, 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 you know, without patronizing, you know, but like just tell you my buyers are so enthusiastic about this place. Like for sure they're going to close. You know, I can like share a pitch. But you have to answer the phone and you have to be receptive to like hearing me. And I feel like good agents in this market have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just important for people like agents in this market to know that it's not easy to be an agent. You know, that you have to actually work to be an agent and you actually have to like pick up the phone, proofread your contract, you know, put together things in a way that lets the other agent know that you're proficient. You know, it's like, there's more effort needed because now people know that things are shaky, you know, like people are flaky, you know, like, you know, people are writing offers that they don't necessarily stand behind, you know, but it really requires someone who's competent to get the deal through because we're educating everyone constantly. The clients, the appraisers, the lenders, everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone's in a different space depending on how involved they are in the market.
Let's talk about the appraiser thing because, you know, that's another thing that prior to this market, there were definitely some sellers agents who just would let the appraisers let themselves in. And I don't think they were giving appraisal packages and the value was just there. Now, I've seen in the past like 4 months, I've seen appraisals note that the property's in a depreciating area for values. Yep, I know. I'm
Wow.
like, really? That was in the valley. I've seen appraisers note that a property is close to a freeway. Never seen that before. So I feel like, only one time on my desert listing did I have an appraiser not appreciate our appraisal package and send me this like weird 3:00 in the morning, all caps email message. I'm never going to use your comps. I'm like, okay. Just trying to help. Totally trying to help. But only once has that really happened.
That's
Usually
crazy.
I'm explaining to the appraisers why people are moving to this area, what it is that we're seeing on the ground in the market, why things are valued a certain way, why people care about the ADUs in this area, for example, because it's highly desirable, because it's central location and people can get east to west, and like these are renting really well, and I don't know, whatever. I need to share all of the improvements that the seller's done to the property, and whatever. I sell the house, and make sure the appraiser has everything he needs, whether he accepts it or not, to make the most informed appraisal. And I feel like that's something that we used to have to do before the market was hot. We never stopped doing as ACME agents, but definitely that needs to be there and that's a behind the scene thing. So you don't get any glory for that until it comes in, until the appraisal comes in at value.
It's a personal glory.
It's a personal glory.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah, it is a great thing.
That's like one of my favorite calls.
Yeah.
Did it come in at value? Yes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but that's something that like you're working behind the scenes. Your client doesn't know that you're doing that as part of your job. They just think it's kind of like magic. It's like, not magic.
No, it's a little.
Just good agent thing. Yeah. I mean, I think that also being honest and also communicating like honest expectations to your clients is really important for good agents, whether it's on the buy side or the sell side. So what I'm learning now about this market is that there are some properties that look pretty good that have been on the market for a while, and it doesn't mean anything is wrong with them. It means that the seller wasn't willing to come down in the price because the seller's holding to their value. And if their value is actually good value, then there's no harm in paying, the price that would get you the house. Like there's nothing wrong with that. As long as it appraises and you can get financing on it and whatever. Just because the seller's not willing to come down doesn't mean that the house isn't worth having or something. Mm-hmm. So I'm like letting sellers know if they're sitting at the top of the market, like it might take a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And if they're willing to wait it out, then, we are too, like we're behind you. We understand the value too, and there will be a right buyer who makes a reasonable offer that will get accepted. It just might not be in 2 weeks or whatever, so communicating accurate expectations to the sellers and to the buyers. Like, look, you guys can throw a low ball offer out. Doesn't mean the seller's going to go for it. Mm-hmm. Like, I think we got a Brenhurst offer at like a 1.5 or something. It's like, what?
Just throw it at the wall to see if it sticks. That's
I mean, it's like, come on.
It's insulting.
I always love to get those those like random offers that like land in your inbox like after you haven't shown it yet,
right?
And it's just some random offer $500,000 off the list price. Like I bet you will love to get it for this price.
Yeah.
Me
Right.
too. I buy it then.
Yeah,
right.
And resell it right now
with like a thing on the bottom. With let's open escrow.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Right. Or when they send a really low offer and then text me like, I just sent an amazing offer.
Yeah.
Me? Wait, what? $200,000 under list,
Oh my God.
Come on. I mean, or when the other agent is arguing with me about value, I don't like that either.
I hate
I'm
that.
like, look, I'm not the one. Or like an agent coming in to the open house and arguing the neighborhood and the value down to their client in front of other buyers at the open house. That just turns me completely off. I'm like, you got to have some respect, Mm-hmm. It's just not cool.
Yeah.
I
And
don't love
definitely
And learn how to know where you're going. So don't go into an open house and say the name of the neighborhood wrong.
Oh my God.
Just know where you are before you get there, please.
Yeah, totally. There was an agent that interviewed that didn't know how to pronounce a particular neighborhood's name. like we have like Los Feliz, like you don't know how to say the name. I'm telling you what the name, how to pronounce it. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter. I speak a bunch of languages, so it doesn't matter.
Oh.
I'm like, the people who live in the neighborhood,
matters
to them, that you have some respect for the neighborhood name, it means something.
And this has nothing to do with the other.
It's
You
so
speak 100
weird.
languages. What?
Yeah, know that especially if you're going to come in and try and talk shit, you better at least know how to pronounce the neighborhood name. Come on. Or the street name for that matter. You know what I mean? Another thing is I saw in something, it was like a strategy, like just write write 25 days, not 30 for close of escrow, and then just extend it once you get in, or like play nice before you get to inspections, and then play hardball on inspection.
Oh my God.
I'm like, no.
my God, no.
Now I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I know your game.
Now I know your game. That when I saw that, I thought the exact same thing. I thought, now I know.
Now I know.
I mean, I would have guessed, but I also now I know.
I mean, that to me is really bad advice. I am honest in everything. Like, I've had vendors say, do you want me to fluff the inspection?
Oh God, no.
You?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
invoices like
why
sewer
would
line
you
guys and
ask
stuff
such
like
a
that.
thing?
As if people haven't received a million
Yeah, but plus it also tells me something about you, vendor.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll never trust any invoice from you ever again.
Yep.
If it's not coming from, like, if another agent sends it from you, I know you fluffed it.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's
totally,
just
completely.
such bullcrap.
Yeah. And I've had clients, like, not recently, but, in the past ask me, like, should we ask them to increase the price of the offer so we have more negotiating power? I'm like, no, never. To me, I want to show the other agent that we're only asking for what the true cost of the repair actually is. And so we only work with like trusted vendors. But when I see that or hear that, or, when I receive a bid that is like completely inflated, I'm like, I don't trust the agents. I don't trust the vendor. And I'm like, that's not the way to negotiate. To me, it's not that you play nice and then you're horrible and request for repairs. Play nice because you are nice, if you are nice. Because if you fuck this deal up, I'm not going to want to work with you on the next one. And if I have a choice, I might say to my agents, look, I did this deal with these people and they completely, left a bad taste in my mouth and misled us and intentionally did all this shit. And, as opposed to these people who are great and honest and da-da-da. I mean, reputation matters, right? So I'm like, that's very short-sighted.
That's all what you have to go
Yeah,
over.
and it's the same thing you're going to tell the seller.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're going to be communicating exactly how that went and what they can expect.
Right.
And it could totally sway whether or not they get their offer accepted on the next thing. It's just like, you have to know you're going to run into people. It's not. It's like a big city, but it's a small town.
Right.
This business is like,
and that's just what it is. It's like the law of attraction or something. Like,
when you think you're not gonna,
you always run. Like it's cosmic. Guidance is what that's the word. You always run into that same person and you think it's like, oh, well, oops, here we are again.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. It's funny.
It is a funny thing. Yeah. So what goes around comes around. Any final thoughts on who wins in this market?
Any final thoughts?
Just be above board.
Do that. Be above board.
Just be above board.
Yeah.
Just be cool. Be cool.
Honesty, flexibility, realism.
Yeah, for sure. I think realism, that's the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, you're in LA. Like, so let's be real about that. There's like constant demand here, and there's never enough inventory because most people stay in their houses. I mean, there's a turnover, but you have a lot of people who've been there for decades. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you've got to figure out how to be creative. You've got to be open. You've got to, whenever you do get in the market, be fair, be thoughtful, be real with your agent, be real with the sellers. Like,
be real.
Yeah.
Be real. Mm-hmm. From our lips to your ears. We'll see you on the next episode of Under All Is the Land. Toodles.
Toodles. Do for yourself. Add a couple notches to your belt.